What's up guys, my name's Nate and this is Heavy Pedal Garage. Today we're going to talk about sanding blocks. We're going to talk about the difference between hard blocks, soft blocks, and my opinion when I would like to use one type or the other. So another thing we're going to do is we're going to pull the front bumper off and the back bumper off. They're both in Dura. This is a 1975 Firebird and they use that material to construct their bumpers. So that'll probably be the last video for the Enduro repair series. So go back and check out those videos. I've got a playlist for that Enduro repair. I go through how you use the 3M flexible parts repair material to take care of any kind of imperfection on these bumpers. So we're gonna go ahead and block these down though. They're ready for sort of that final stage of body work before we start busting through the grits for paint. So right now, let's get started and we'll take a look at some of these sanding blocks. Okay, so what we've got here is my assortment of blocks that I use. These here are soft sanders. These are really cool. They're kind of like a pool noodle, but they're a little more firm than that. So they've got all these different shapes and sizes. Each block may even have several different surfaces that you can pick from when you're trying to match up a block to the contours or body lines of your car. Now over here we have DuraBlocks, which these are a little bit harder, but they're still kind of soft. They still have a little bit of flex to them, but not as much as the soft sanders. And these two come in an assortment of sizes so that you can pick which block you want. Now over here, this is a really hard block. It has no flex to it whatsoever. So this is an assortment of blocks that I keep handy. They're not produced by a company. So this is a pool noodle wrapped in masking tape. This is some packing foam. But this is really cool because it's got that density that you want to work with when you're wanting a soft block, but you can cut this. You can make it into whatever shape you want. And then this stuff right here, these, well, I'll just show you. Guess what this is right here? That's a bite mark, okay? These are old bathtub toys from when my kids were little babies, and these you can also use to cut and shape and whatever you want. And this here, this is just a piece of foam. I don't even know what it was for, like maybe some kind of gasket or something for a bracket, but this worked really well. I fold this in half and it's just about the right size to fit in between the vents on that hood. So all kinds of stuff you can think about when you go to pick a block or find a block or make something work to fit the contours of the panel. So in my opinion, you're really going to want to start out when you're doing your rough body work with something that's really firm. That firmness is what you need to cut through things like your body filler, your primer. When you're in your shaping stage, using something that's got some firmness to it is really going to help you cut through and get that shape worked out the way you want it. That's not to say that when you're in your rough bodywork stage and you're trying to shape that you can't use things like, a paint stick to get into some smaller grooves or a larger flat piece of wood to help kind of smooth and shape an area that your block may not fit into. But the idea here is when you first start out, in my mind, I want something a little more firm that isn't going to have so much give that I can bust down that surface with. Something like this I've shown in some past videos where you can contour it to fit the panel, and then you bend it and put your paper on there while it's in the shape that you want, and that'll help hold the shape. But still, the surface itself really, I'm squeezing as hard as I can there, and it just doesn't have much give on the surface. Okay, so once you're through with your shaping stage of your body work, you're getting down to where you're just busting through the grits to get towards your paint. In that case, you can use these soft ones and really kind of fit the block to whatever contour you're working with. That way you're sure to get into all the pieces and places that you need to cut those sanding scratches down to a point where you're not going to be able to see them through your paint. So these soft blocks are really handy for that. And they'll flex really, really good. You flex this to the contour of your panel and then put your sandpaper on there, and that is not going to move. You can use these when you're first working your surface, but again, if you look at how much flex there is on the surface. Think about your sandpaper. You know, when you put this block on the surface of your car and you're sanding with it and you're trying to cut a lump out of some body filler, this is probably going to have some give and, you know, glide over top of the lump instead of cutting it down. So that is why when you're doing your rough body work up through the grits, the middle grits like 120, even 220, I'll stay with the DuraBlocks. And then once I finally get into that paint prep stage where I'm really not shaping, I'll switch to these. However, what I will show you is that you can wrap your paper around the block in a channel like that, and that will firm up that soft block so that you can use this surface more like the DuraBlock rigid surface. So when I'm block sanding these panels, I really like to have both kinds on hand, the soft and the harder DuraBlocks, plus, you know, the assortment of blocks that I may need to make to fit in certain gaps. But what I'm going to do is run through some tips and tricks on some of these soft blocks that I like to use. Now, these aren't my tips and they're not my tricks. They come from the actual soft sander company guys. There's a video on their page, Kevin Tetz. You got to see what he does with these things. That's probably the best video that they have on there to show you all the different tips and tricks that you can do to really make sure that you're getting the most bang for the buck out of these blocks. Super cool. So when you check out those videos, I mean, there's so many different ways that you can use these things that you almost don't even know what all you can do until you see somebody else do it. So if you think about earlier in the video, I talked about the vents on my hood. I took a piece of foam and folded it in half and wrapped the paper around that to get down inside the vents. Well, Kevin Tetz showed the best trick. Using the angles on these two blocks right here can really save you some time and effort. So this yellow block is a little softer than the red one, but as you can see, it fits right down in there, and with just a little bit of pressure, you can get that going, even sand both sides at the same time. And then this red one is a little more firm, and it's got this really nice double set here of angles that you can use to get in there. But so you push that down in just slightly and you've really got a nice surface. So another thing you can do with these soft blocks, you see the surface there? It's got this point on it. But say I need to use this because it's the right width, okay? But I don't need that point, I want it rounded. You can actually get your sandpaper started, stick it down, and then you can wrap it around and torque your paper down to give it a curve. You can also do the same thing and fold and use that as a flat surface. So another thing you can do here with any of these blocks is, say you want to get down into a trough or a channel. So you wrap your block with the paper like this, okay? But you're reaching down in there and it's just not quite getting to where you want. You need a little more of a flat surface, more of a point. What you can do is back your paper off, and then when you put it on, leave your point, leave yourself a little bit of a gap out there, okay? And what that'll do is obviously give you the point that you need to get down in there. You can contour your block and your paper to fit these complex angles and grooves. See here, I've got, you know, this surface that dips down into a channel and then back up to the surface of the bumper, and I'm going to use this angle right here. But when I do that, I'm going to push my paper down in and then get it to stick. And from there, my block has contoured to that complex surface. And it really saves your fingers from a lot of that pain and suffering of trying to take a piece of paper and get down in there. And it preserves your fingerprints as well. I don't know if you guys have gotten into that, where you're using a little nub of sandpaper and by the end of the day, you could be a smooth criminal. So here's another good example of why I love both of these types of blocks. So on this rear bumper, you can see we have this nice concave arc there. So you know, when you're using your hard block, you know, I'll cut it in, knock the orange peel out, knock my highs and lows out, and get it nice and straight. But then, to really finish it off, you can use a block like this. But see, you say, well, that looks pretty similar to the radius of the round block, and there's only just a little bit of that surface touching at a time. Well, nope, nope, nope. Aha, let's go this way. Yep, 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 yep. It starts to get to where you can really get that block filled in and capture most of that radius all at once, so that surface is touching. So little things like that can really give you those little detail improvements that are going to make your project just look fantastic. Using both of these blocks together. This is just how I do it. There's probably, you know, 150 million different opinions on when you use what kind of block. So take all this information with a grain of salt. I think the best advice I can give you is read, look things up, check it out, try it out, see what it is that works for you, and as you move through your process, you'll figure out the best way for you to do it. So we're going to get sanding on this bumper. It's got a lot of complex curves on it, so I'm going to take it off the car and put it on a sawhorse so that it's nice and stable and I can get around it and work all over this thing. So we got lots going on in the garage out here today. Just gonna go over these, clean them up a little bit more, use my red Scotch-Brite to really get down in some of these little groove areas that I couldn't reach, and we're gonna get some primer on these bad boys and see how they turn out.